Hello there. What is going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about Gen Con early predictions, things that we expect to see coming out of Gen Con 2019, which is actually sneaking up. It's getting surprisingly close. We're currently 72 days away until Gen Con. It is, it sounds like a lot, but it's really just going to creep up on us, and it'll be here before we know it. I am going to be there this year, so if you happen to be there and you want to come say hi, that'll be cool. Hopefully I'll have some little card promos, some lightsaber nunchucks to hand out as well. Before I jump into this, though, I do want to remind you, if you are new here, I am still giving away the Star Wars Celebration exclusive Maul and Obi-Wan for the Hasbro Black Series line. All you have to do to enter to win that giveaway is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. That being said, let's go ahead and dive into some things that I think they're going to be talking about at Gen Con. Like last year, they announced the Super Star Destroyer for Armada. They also dropped Keyforge on us. They also talked about how Clone Wars was coming for X-Wing and then Legion also. They didn't say anything about Armada, but, then, of course, at Celebration, we found out Clone Wars was coming for Armada. So there's been a lot of really great announcements lately. And I do think, we'll probably have some Keyforge news as well, but I'm going to probably focus this a little bit more on the Star Wars stuff, since that is kind of one of the big things. So first off, let's talk about Legion, because Legion just got a lot of news at Adepticon, and the Legion Clone Wars core set is set to be coming out at quarter 3. So definitely looks like August being kind of earlier in quarter 3. Or kind of in the middle, really. It definitely looks like this will be a Gen Con early release, although they haven't confirmed that yet. I would probably be, you can probably rest assured they will have these at Gen Con, barring anything unforeseen. I'm sure that is at least the plan, is to have Legion Clone Wars at Gen Con, along with the two expansions that they're going to have, the B1 expansion and the Clone Trooper expansion. It's even possible they may have some others, like... it stands to reason that they're going to have Droideca's expansion and also the Bark Speeder expansion as well. They did say that those were coming. They just weren't going to be in this first initial drop. So there's always that possibility they could say, oh, and by the way, we also have these, and they're available today, because Gen Con has historically done this stuff where they'll announce something and say, oh, and by the way, it's available today, so you can go buy it right now. And so, that is something that they will sometimes do for something like some of the Clone Wars Legion, expansions that we're expecting to see, like the Droidecas and the Bark Speeder. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. However, I'm not counting on it. I think what we will see, though, is we'll see a little bit more, because we haven't gotten a whole lot of extra previews of brand new stuff for Legion lately. Now, granted, they do this all the time. We get lots of Legion news almost every week or two, it seems like. So having had to go like a month without Legion news isn't really that big of a thing, but it's a surprise to a lot of people. So if they're slowing down the schedule with Legion, it'd be nice if they told us that. So I do expect we'll get actually a pretty good chunk of new news for Legion, like a whole new wave, maybe 6 expansions or so. That's kind of how they have done waves for Legion, is that they've always done them as like groups of 6 expansions, and they'll release like 2 at a time each month over 3 months, and that's kind of how a wave of Legion has worked. So I wouldn't be surprised if they, we see at least a couple more expansions being announced for Legion. Probably more heavily Clone Wars oriented, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit more for the Galactic Civil War as well. But I think right now, with 2 new factions coming in, the Clone War stuff is definitely more needed. Also, they talked about the card packs. I wouldn't be surprised if the card packs were also early availability. Speaking of card packs, I think X-Wing, they need to probably announce X-Wing card packs, but let's talk about X-Wing Epic, because we at least 3 ships are supposed to be coming that I bet you I don't know if we'll have them available, but I think they'll at least talk a little bit more about X-Wing Epic for the X-Wing discussion. It also wouldn't surprise me if Wave 5 is possibly early release or early availability, because Wave 4, I believe, is supposed to be coming before Gen Con. Wave 4, I believe, is supposed to be, I think, June 6th or something like that, which is going to put them well ahead of Gen Con, which means there's enough time in there for Wave 5 to potentially be an early pickup. And if that's the case, that actually won't be so bad for me because I won't feel obligated to pick up one of everything at Gen Con. I'll just get the new stuff. I don't necessarily think I have to pick up all the reprints this time, although I'll be able to look at them up close in the boxes and see, like, if something's obviously changed, then I'll pick up to take a look at it. Like the Ghost I'll want to pick up because I want to see the new docking mechanism, but I might not pick up a Decimator, for example, if it looks like it's the same. I am still a little curious about the Decimator just to see, like, if the bottom piece of it is, like, things like that. I'm less likely to change, but I'm curious, like, if the peg sticks better on the Decimators. But so I'm more likely to pick up things that are, there's some actual real review value to, as opposed to something that's just a complete reprint. But the Epic ships, though, I expect we'll see a far more detailed preview of X-Wing Epic. It wouldn't surprise me if they have X-Wing Epic scenarios on display, since those did wrap up testing a while back. They may have the demo areas set up to do some X-Wing Epic combat, rather than just basic. Because usually, if you're at Gen Con and you walk into the FFG booth, they have all their different games set up that you can demo. And the more popular games have multiple tables. It's like last year, Keyforge had, I think, like 6 tables or something to demo. Armada only had 1. Legion had 2 or 3. Like X-Wing 2.0 had 4 tables, and it wasn't even the newest game at that point. Keyforge was the newest game. So even when X-Wing 2nd edition was a year old, it still had like 4 tables. So it wouldn't surprise me if they have like 2 tables for regular X-Wing 2.0 and then 2 tables for Epic X-Wing. And they might even have Epic stuff on like a small 3x3 just to give you a feel for that, which will be kind of cool. Hoping we have a bigger Armada presence, though, which makes me want to jump into Armada. I'm definitely expecting we're going to see early releases for the Super Star Destroyer and for the Rebellion in the Rim campaign, because those are both scheduled for Q3 2019, which puts them at or about Gen Con timeframe. Possibly even they could, in theory, come out earlier than Gen Con, but I think it just makes more sense to kind of have them be a Gen Con release. I would love for the Superstar Destroyer to ship before Gen Con, so I don't have to try and figure out how I'm going to get that bad boy back home, because that could be tricky. It'd be like trying to ship an electric guitar through like FedEx or something like that. Because it's probably about that big. We'll have to convert one into a guitar and put some strings on it. I think that's maybe something we could do. But like as far as new announcements for Armada, so we do know that Clone Wars is coming. We also know that there's 2 more ships in development. They've talked about these 2 new ships. First they said there were 2 more ships. Then they've confirmed that there was, I think, Rebellion and Empire for both of them, which makes sense. But they said that there were sizable ships. And we don't know exactly what that means. I think that means we can rule out small ships, and they're not like flotillas, or they're definitely not squadrons, and they're probably not small ships. They're probably medium or large or huge. And it'd be interesting to see if they do any more huge ships. I would have thought they would have done the Eclipse, but since the Eclipse is a title that's coming for the Super Star Destroyer, I don't think they're going to do that model. So I think those of you like Mel Miniatures who are working on Eclipse models for your tabletop, I think you're safe. I don't think FFG is going to create the Eclipse model. Unless, of course, they do the Eclipse for the First Order, which I do expect to see in Episode 9, because in the canon, the Eclipse was sent to the unknown regions, and ended up becoming like the first big ship that the First Order had. So I'm going to be really interested to see the Eclipse on the First Order side, to see if they've modified it. Hopefully they've gave it the little goatee in the front, and they've kind of painted it black and made it more closely resemble the Eclipse of Legend. If they do that in Episode 9, I'm going to be a very, very happy crab, because that's going to be awesome. So with that being said, I do expect we'll get a preview of these new ships. I was really counting on a Dornian gunship for the Rebels, but if they're sizable, then I don't know if that's going to be the case. What remains to be seen here is if they're going to go ahead and give us stuff out of Legends, if they're going to, give us the Dreadnought, which is now canon. It's just not called the Dreadnought anymore, but I think we could see that. I think it's very, very likely. There's a lot of different things they could potentially do. The Assault Frigate Mark 1, I think, is a possibility. I think the Starhawk is a possibility. I think there's that ship from Solo is a possibility. The Arrestor Cruiser, even as ugly as it kind of looks in the Hot Wheels toy, I think that's a possibility. I think the Carrion Spike, probably less likely of a possibility because it's a smaller ship. But I think an Imperial Venator is definitely a possibility, especially with them going to be doing the Clone Wars. I think an Imperial Venator would be awesome, and I would love to see that. Now, as for Clone Wars, I think we'll actually get our first look at Star Wars Clone Wars for Armada. I don't think it'll be a hefty preview, because I think, when they announced it, it was very, very early, because they didn't even have any kind of concept art to show us. So I think it will be similar to what they showed us for X-Wing Clone Wars back at Gen Con last year, which was just like, here's two of the ships. Like, they might tell us what is going to come in the core set as far as ships, but I don't think they'll show us any ship cards or any of the finalized stuff. But they may give us some early concept looks at it, just to whet our appetites a little bit. But I don't know if we'll even see box art when it comes time for Gen Con. I mean, I hope so, but I think they'll be able to, I think they'll just be willing to talk about it, and so those of us who are there start thinking about questions that you'll want to ask, like a real easy, a softball question to ask is going to be like, hey, since you guys are creating Armada Clone Wars, are you looking at continuing your support for the Galactic Civil War factions, the Empire and the Rebellion as well? I mean, granted, then it'd be nice to just get them on record as saying, yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, But it would be also interesting to see if they're like, if that prompts like a firm answer of like, no, actually, we're discontinuing that, and Armada is strictly going to be a Clone Wars game. Of course, that's not the case, but that's a good softball question that just gets them on the record of saying, yes, we absolutely plan to continue to support the Rebels and the Empire. Just be nice to have that on record. Other things, there's a lot of little questions, and we'll have to see. We'll wait and see, because there's still 2 months to go. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there's any new news, like any news, like a new announcement of something that we hadn't already seen, like another really good question to ask. And it's something I plan to ask. I'm going to try and get up there and get quick questions. Is card packs for Armada, because I think Armada is the one game that is in most desperate need of card packs, because there are upgrades that are completely sprinkled about on one-off ships that are only available to one faction, and it's completely abundant with those. So if you don't buy everything, you're going to be at a severe disadvantage, and that's one of the things that really contributes to the cost of being a competitive Armada player, is that you kind of have to buy everything. And I know, and I hope they'll go that way with putting out card packs for Armada, because that would be a huge thing. The biggest thing that I really kind of hope, if they give us new news, is, are they looking at a cheaper entry point for new players, whether it's through the Clone Wars expansion, or the Clone Wars, if they're going to do a core set for Clone Wars, or if they're going to do an Essentials kit for anybody starting Armada wanting to build a faction a la carte. That's kind of what I'm hoping. But I'm definitely hoping that we have a new demo for Armada as well, because I'm pretty sure, if you've seen me at conventions, I'm usually teaching Armada. So if we have a new demo for Armada that's different than just like kind of the core set that we've had in the past, if we can get an SSD on the table to be demoing for people, that'll be really cool. I think that'll attract a lot of new people. It'll get a lot of people taking pictures of it as well. So that'll be fun. All right, so what else are we looking at? They've kind of said they're not planning on making anything else for Imperial Assault. So I don't expect we'll see an Imperial Assault announcement. Probably, maybe another Destiny announcement. I'm sure there'll be some Destiny previews. I've not really been playing Destiny as much lately, but I think they'll have some of that. It wouldn't surprise me if they announce an expansion for Outer Rim. Outer Rim has... I don't even know if it's officially out yet, because I've had my copy for so long. Last I heard is it was supposed to be coming out in May, but I don't believe it's actually been released yet, which reminds me I probably need to do a solo playthrough. Maybe I will do that here pretty soon. But yeah, I need to bring some more videos for Outer Rim, because it is a fun game, but I feel like the few problems, if you've seen my review of Outer Rim, I did give it a good review, but it was littered with some criticism, and all of the things I critiqued on Outer Rim and things I had problems with, I feel like there's stuff that an expansion could easily fix. So I feel like the game is built with expansions in mind, and it would not surprise me to see multiple expansions for Outer Rim, along with potentially an Outer Rim 2nd Edition many years from now that kind of fixes all of the issues, incorporates a lot of the expansions, and makes it a more complete game. I would love to see that. But on its own right now, Outer Rim is still a good game. It's still fun. And the biggest strength of it is the fact that it's a Star Wars game that's actually a true multiplayer game. And I love that. So Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they announce an Outer Rim expansion. My money is on some kind of spies and undercover characters that they could add, like Leia as Boosh, or maybe Agent Callus, or ISB agents that are undercover. Stuff like that would be really fun to kind of add to the game, the whole undercover element. And maybe, because you kind of have different, like, character archetypes in this game, and a spy would be a whole new archetype that you could add, which would be real fun. I think it'd be cool. And if they're going to do multiple expansions for Outer Rim, I hope they do them in really small, like $10 or $15 expansions, really small ones that all fit in the box. I would hope they don't do like big box expansions and have like a dozen of those. I kind of want small expansions so I can fit it all in the box and make it just, cards and things like that. Although it would be kind of cool if they did a miniatures expansion for Outer Rim so that you could really fancy up your game. That would be a fun one to, if you wanted to really, put the ships in there, put the minis in there, and have a player icon that you can put like the ship and the mini on the same thing. So that would be really fun. Although I could imagine just modding that and using like minis from Armada and stuff. They don't have all of the minis available yet. Now, a lot of times they'll announce other stuff as well. Like last year, they announced a lot of other things for other games, and I do play certain other board games besides just Star Wars board games. You've seen in my garage when I film out there and I have all the board games behind me. I do have a pretty good collection of board games. I am absolutely expecting some other board game news. I mentioned Keyforge already. It's another game I really enjoy. It's not even a Star Wars IP at all. I'm sure there'll be some kind of new Cthulhu, like Arkham stuff. I am sure there'll probably be maybe something else with Game of Thrones, since that is very, very popular right now for both good and bad reasons. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had something else in the Game of Thrones IP to talk about. But I'm actually if I had to bet for one other game, my money is on an expansion for Twilight Imperium 4th Edition. TI4 got dropped on us, I think, 2 years ago at Gen Con, and it was both announced and immediately available for sale. So that was like one of those cool things, and having played it a few times, I had played other versions of TI4, but I adopted this one late. I was very late to jump into Twilight Imperium 4th Edition, but I absolutely love it. It's definitely one of my top 5 board games of all time. It's a competitor for the number 1 because Rebellion is also kind of up there. I don't think we'll see anything else for Rebellion, by the way. But I think TI4, an expansion for TI4, we're probably due for that. In the way that they've kind of done Twilight Imperium games is like they'll have, I think, 3 expansions and then roll it up into another edition. So I think we still got like 10 more years until we're like due for a 5th edition for Twilight Imperium. But I mean, it's really good in 4th edition. Super, super great game. And the only downfall is that like to really get the best game, you need like 5 players and a lot of time. But if you can do that, you're in for like a super, super good day. I think this is something I'll want to do on my birthday. Is just play TI4. Like that's like a great birthday, a birthday well spent, in my opinion. So I think that's what you guys should do for your birthday. You should ask for Twilight Imperium 4th Edition for your birthday, and ask for a bunch of friends and sit down and play it, because you won't regret it. I mean, if you're a board gamer, it's like one of the best experiences you can have. It's just super fun, super fun. So that's a lot of my Gen Con predictions, guys. Let me know what you agree with. Is there anything you're hoping to see, like Ewoks, or maybe Legion will throw us a surprise and give us a preview of like sub factions that they were talking about. That would be pretty cool. I feel like it's a little too early to dive into sub factions, though. I feel like it's like one of those things where they're going to be like, hey, we need to iron out the resistance. I'm sorry, they're not the resistance. We're not in sequel factions yet, but they need to iron out the separatists and the Republic first before they dive into sub factions. But I'm totally cool for getting sub factions. I would kind of expect them maybe next year's Gen Con for us to talk about sub factions for Legion. But definitely want card packs for all the games. X-Wing needs them too, but I think Armada needs it most of all. I want to see some more expansions, even for our board games that we have. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I will be there, hopefully. I should be there at the in-flight brief, also streaming that as well. So if you can't make it, make sure you are subscribed and click that bell for alerts so you will not miss out on when that stream happens. Granted, you're like 2 months early, but hey, it never hurts. And it helps me out too. I do, honestly. I like, pushing to get one of the little YouTube trophies. I have to get 100,000 subscribers for that. That's going to take me like, my average rate, it's going to take me like 10 years. So tell your friends, maybe I can get it done in half the time. Because I can have a little thing I hang up. I mean, I guess that's really all you get, right? A little thing, a little trophy for the wall. But my kids were like, "Dad, how come you don't have a trophy yet?" And I'm like, because I'm not that big of a deal. Right? That's all I got for you guys. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.